Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Empowerment Table with Lakesha Lingard. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm a certified trauma specialist. I am certified in attachment theory, and I am so glad to be back with you all this morning for part four. Part four, which is our final part of our attachment series. So today um, we're going to close everything out with our topic building secure relationships that last. So, this is a culmination of everything that we've talked about during this series. Take a minute, invite someone else to join. If you know someone who would benefit from a conversation about building secure relationships that will last, this is the moment as we settle in this morning just to invite someone in to join us this morning. And so I'm so grateful to be able to end this series. It's been a lot of helpful information. And the takeaway is that secure relationships, they're not built by avoiding conflict or never needing reassurance. They are built when people can be honest, accountable, connected, and still remain themselves. So that's the takeaway of everything that we have talked about over these last four sessions. And so I just thank you all. Come in the room if you're able to type good morning to let me know that you're here. I won't be before you long this morning just to close out this amazing, helpful series. But I'm so glad that you all are with me this morning. I'm even grateful for those who will go back and watch this on the replay. And so there's going to be some things that we're going to focus on today. Let me drag this where I can see my PowerPoint better. All right, that's a better position for me. So just stick with me for a few minutes and we'll get through the rest of this together. So let's see. Before we kind of start tonight, this morning, rather, I want you all to put in the comments if you're watching and you're able to. When you think of a healthy relationship, which word matters most to you? Trust, respect, consistency, honest, or peace. So I have a few, you'll see a few options there, those options there in the visual presentation, but you may have another word of your own. And so just think about it. What word comes to mind for you when you think about a secure relationship? And I'll give you all a few minutes to comment. Um, and I do like to start out saying this series, today's episode, just like the past series, this information is not intended to replace individual therapy. If you feel like you need therapy, you're having some relationship issues, or you just feel like you want to know more about your attachment style and how to get to a place where you are in a secure relationship, reach out. There are a lot of platforms available that can help assist in finding a therapist. Psychology Today, growth therapy, black girl therapy. So there are many, even many more than that. So there are a lot of resources available. So I want to just give a quick recap. So in part one, we looked at our relationship blueprint, and part two, we explored why we get triggered and how our nervous system responds when we are triggered. And then in part three, we talked about healing attachment wounds and developing earned security. So, with all of that, today we're just bringing it all together. What does secure connection actually looks like in everyday life? And I want to clarify something. A lot of people know what unhealthy relationships look like because of social media, right? On social media, there are buzzwords that are out there and that gets a lot of attention: red flags, toxic behavior, narcissism, ghosting, gaslighting, trauma bond. So we hear all of that. Some of us are well versed in that, but many people are less clear about what a healthy connection looks like, especially when it's ordinary, when it's imperfect, but it's consistent. So keep this in mind. Secure relationships, they are often less dramatic than the insecure ones, right? We can be so used to drama that when you're in something that's not as dramatic, it can feel like it can make you question it, but it can feel calmer, more predictable, less intense, more honest, more mutual, and less performative. So that calmness, that predictability, that honesty, it can feel unfamiliar to someone. Again, if your previous relationships were built around constantly having to pursue your partner, or unpredictability and going through these emotional highs and lows, it can feel unpredictable, unfamiliar. Like I said, and even for some people, they may say, oh, it's boring, there's no excitement. Again, because we may have been used to that pursuit, and having to constantly pursue your partner doesn't actually mean that it's secure. And so we can be used to this unpredictability. And when we get something that is the opposite, that is actually more secure, it can seem kind of strange at first. But again, what comes to mind for you when you think of a healthy relationship? Again, some options are trust, respect, honesty, consistency, or peace. And so none of these qualities stand alone, but just know that a healthy relationships are built by one or several of those that are going to be working together. Let me I'm asking you all to share the chat. Let me go ahead and share as well. If you know someone who would benefit from this, share it, tag them. All right. So put your response in the chat, and I look forward to reading your responses later. So first, I want to just talk about secure attachment in adulthood. And so the clinical term here that I'm going to use is secure base. So a secure base refers to the experience of knowing that that connection is available. So I have this secure base. I know that connection is available while I'm still having like freedom to explore, to grow, work, create, worship, rest, and even function independently. So in adult relationships, security won't always mean that you're constantly together. It's just that ability to be able to move between the two, right? Move between closeness and space, dependence and independence, vulnerability and autonomy. That's what security looks like. For an example, I have an example here. A woman gets a promotion that requires more travel. Her partner misses her, right? But does not guilt her for accepting the opportunity. So instead, they discuss how often they'll check in, what support, what support each other's needs, how responsibilities will be handled, how they will protect their time together. And so that's what that would look like instead. Secure connections does not require one person to shrink back so the other person will feel safe. That's important. because oftentimes if you're dealing with someone who has insecure attachment, anxiously attached, we the other person may feel the need to shrink back just to make that other person feel safe. I want to clarify something. Independence is not automatically avoidant attachment, because it may feel that way to someone who is anxiously attached. A person can enjoy solitude, they can enjoy traveling alone, maintain separate interests, or need quiet time and still be securely attached. So the question is not, do you like being alone, but it's really, can you be close without feeling trapped? And can you be separate without treating connection like it's dangerous? And so that's the question for the day. I want to thank Sandra Miller for joining me this morning. Thank you so much, Minister Sandra, for joining me, and I hope that this information helps you. All right, so the next section, I want to take a few minutes to talk about emotional emotional availability. All right, so the clinical term, emotional availability. A person is emotionally available. That means they are capable of noticing, tolerating, and responding to another person's emotional experience without constantly dismissing it, minimizing it, trying to control it, or trying to escape it. So it does not mean, it also does not even mean always knowing what to say. And so it's just about being available for that person when they're going through, when they are having an emotional experience. It doesn't mean that they expect you to fix it. I think it's just that availability that helps. I want to give a relatable example for that. So, a husband comes home frustrated after being passed over for a promotion. His spouse could say, "You'll be fine. Everything happens for a reason." That response, now it may seem well intended, but it can actually be bypassing the person's emotions. So I want to give you an example of an emotionally available response, and this is just one of many. The spouse could say to their husband, "That sounds really disappointing. Do you want to talk about what happened, or do you need time first?" Right? So the second response, just like the first, it doesn't fix the problem. It just makes room for that other person. And that's the whole premise behind being emotionally available, just making room for the other person. And I want to speak to fellow members of the faith community, for my Christian viewers. This is an important distinction. Faith and emotional honesty, they do not have to compete, right? So statements like, "Just pray about it," "God has a plan," "You got this," "You need more faith," it may be spiritually meaningful in some contexts, right? But they can be dismissive when it's used to move someone away from legitimate grief, legitimate disappointment or anger or fear. They have a legitimate reason for feeling that way, and we're using our words and our language to try to push them away from that. We're not allowing them that time to be expressive. So, because a person can trust God and still be hurting, a person can pray and still need emotional support. And that's the main distinction that I want to make, in the reminder that I want to put in there. And again, I think sometimes people can mistake showing compassion or being emotionally available to someone as an attempt to bypass them looking for solutions, or them being action oriented, or that person trying to fix the situation. Or maybe we encountered someone who were not looking for a solution. They just wanted to be right. They just wanted someone to co-sign. And that could feel draining if you are a person who is more action oriented or solution focused. But the one thing I would caution you to do is not treat everyone the same. If there is a person who talking about the situation, it appears that it distracts them from, but what's my next step? Maybe that's a separate conversation. But sometimes, too, don't try to rush that person to that next step. Sometimes they'll get into action on their own if they just have a few minutes of just being heard, just having that emotional support, because we all need emotional support at times. So just kind of discern what's been going on in situations you may have encountered so that you can know how to move forward. All right, next I want to talk about request, boundaries, expectations, and control. So again, this is all helping us towards the building secure relationships that last. And I want to give some clarity because sometimes these terms may be frequently confused. So I want to bring clarity here. All right, request. A request, this is the clinical term request. A request asks another person for something while allowing them freedom to answer. So I ask you for something, but I also got to give you freedom to answer. Would you let me know if you're going to be late? So I'm making a request, but I'm giving them the freedom to answer, yes or no. The next term is boundary. A boundary identifies what you need, what you will do, I'm sorry, to protect your well being, your values, your time, or your safety. And I'm sorry if you all hear the background. Lawn service is here today. And so I think he'll be finishing up soon. So again, a boundary identifies what you will do to protect your well-being, your values, your time, or your safety. And so you can say something like this: if yelling begins, I'm going to end the conversation and then return when we can speak respectfully. So that's boundary. Expectation. An expectation is a belief about what should happen in a relationship. I expect honesty in committed partnerships. Expectations should be communicated rather than assumed. We can't assume that someone knows what we're expecting. We have to communicate that. And then the last one is control. Control attempts to remove another person's autonomy. So you are not allowed to speak to any co-workers of the opposite sex. You are not allowed to yell at me. Okay, the person really does not have to honor that. And so anytime we are trying to remove the other person's autonomy, that is an attempt to control. So let me give a relatable example. Someone says, my boundary is that you have to answer my text within 10 minutes. That's actually not a boundary, right? That's a demand that's placed on another person. Let me give you a healthier version of what that could sound like. Frequent communication is important to me. If we consistently have different expectations around communication, I may need to reconsider whether this relationship works for me. So the person is stating their expectation while not trying to have control of the other person's autonomy. That person they have the autonomy to either honor it or not. And I also want to make a distinction between a social media myth versus a clinical reality. The myth. Anything I call a boundary must be respected. That's just a myth. But the clinical reality is people are allowed to disagree with your boundaries, and you are allowed to decide what you're going to do in response. And so a boundary does not guarantee cooperation. What it does, it just clarifies your responsibility. And so, again, these are ways to build secure relationships that last. All right, in this next section, because I said I wasn't going to be before you long, I want to talk about mutuality and reciprocity. So, a clinical term, reciprocity, it means that there is a reasonable pattern of like give and take across time. And so, with that being said, we have to know that relationships, healthy relationships, they're not going to be perfectly 50-50 every day. There will be seasons where one person would carry more, but over time, the thing is both people should matter. And that's the whole goal of that healthy relationship. Relatable examples. If one friend always initiates, drives, checks in, remembers birthdays, make plans, provide emotional support, and then the other friend, they are pleasant when they're contacted, but they rarely contribute. So they can be nice. Oh, hey friend, how are you doing? It's so good to hear from you. And they can be very engaging, but they rarely initiate. They rarely drive or check in or all of those things I said earlier. The relationship may not be abusive, but it definitely might be one-sided. So that distinction, it matters. Not every disappointing relationship is toxic. So again, it may not be abusive, it may not be um, toxic, it may just be one-sided. And that means some relationships are just going to be incompatible, unequal, situational, and maybe even with that being said, better suited on an acquaintance level closeness. And so the key point to take away here is secure attachment includes discernment about who has earned access to a deeper level of you. So everyone does not have to have access to that deeper level of you. And keep that in mind. I have another chat engagement for you. Which one is harder for you? Asking for what you need, saying no, receiving help, or letting someone be disappointed. I'm going to leave that up there for a few minutes as I prepare to move into the next section. The next section we're going to talk about is trust and knowing that trust is built through evidence. And I want to, again, I'm give you some clinical terms here. Relational trust. And relational trust is trust that develops through repeated experiences of someone being reliable, honest, being responsive, and through repair happen repeatedly. So relational trust, that shows you that it's not simply a feeling. I want to give a few relatable examples. You begin working with a new colleague. They are warm, charming, easy to talk to. They may create a positive first impression, but trust develops later, right? Their trust isn't developed by all of that, them being warm and charming and easy to talk to. That's just the things that sometimes come with the first impression. Trust is going to be developed when you are able to observe, do they keep confidential information private? Do they follow through? How do they speak about people when they're absent? Do they take responsibility for their mistakes? Are they consistent when there is no benefit to them? So that's where the trust is built. And a clinical clarification, being a trusting person doesn't mean giving everyone immediate access to your personal history. Secure people can be open and discerning at the same time, right? It can be incremental. Some people may earn access to you, your time before your vulnerability before your dependence, your friendship before your deepest private information. So it happens over time. And I want to stick a pin right there too and move to like a cultural consideration. In many communities of color, caution around systems, institutions, or unfamiliar people may not be shaped only by the person's attachment history, but it could be actually shaped by their lived experiences of discrimination, inequality, or betrayal. So, if you're a clinician watching, you need to avoid reducing all guardedness as an attachment problem, because sometimes that caution is just an adaptive response to the lived experience. The question is whether that caution remains flexible enough just to be able to recognize when safety is actually present. So that's what you would want to do with your clients in that situation. You just want to make sure that they have a certain amount of flexibility, that when they see safety, they can respond to it. All right, we're almost done here this morning, but I have one more, a couple of more things I'm going to quickly go over, and you can go back and watch this later. If you feel like you missed anything, take screenshots of the presentation. So I want to talk about conflict without catastrophe. That's the next thing. So a clinical term here is conflict tolerance. Conflict tolerance is just the ability to remain engaged during a disagreement without automatically escalating, collapsing, retaliating, or even ending the friendship. So we have to, if we're going to be able to build secure attachments or secure relationships that last, we have to exercise a certain amount of conflict tolerance. We have to build our tolerance for conflict, because conflict in relationships is not unavoidable. It is unavoidable. You're never going to be in a relationship where there is not going to be any conflict. And I think sometimes conflict gets this negative connotation when it's really basically that we don't agree about this certain thing. We don't see these things the same way. So if we're not careful, we can build up this intolerance around any level of conflict. And then when it does happen to us, it can instantly escalate. We can instantly want to retaliate or even end a relationship. And so, a relatable example, there could be two siblings that disagree about something like how they're going to care for their aged parent, right? One believes they should hire outside help, the other believes that the family should handle everything. A secure conversation might be, I know we both care about mom or dad or grandma or sister, whoever. We disagree about what support should look like. Let's talk about what each of us can realistically provide. So that's a very different way than, and so they were able to, in that example, tolerate the conflict, tolerate the disagreement without escalating. And so that's the important thing. And I want you to notice what was missing in that example. There were no character attacks, there were no threats, there were no attempts to recruit other family members to take sides, there were no statements of you always or you never. And so avoiding conflict is not the same as being peaceful. Sometimes conflict avoidance preserves appearance while the resentment will still grow underneath when we avoid it. It can look good on the outside, but there's still a lot of resentment growing underneath, and we don't want that. Peace is not merely the absence of disagreement. So a person may want to believe that we're at peace because we never disagree. The thing is, it includes the capacity to tell the truth in a safe way. All right, I'm going to go on to the next section before we close out. And this section for building secure relationships that last. This next section is called bids for connections, BIDS for connections. And this kind of reminds me of the work of John Gottman. He is a researcher that I'm sorry, he's a researcher that he put years and years, decades of his career just exploring relationships, and he oftentimes talked about bids for connection. And so anytime someone is bidding you for connection, it can be just a small attempt. It doesn't have to be big. It can just be that attempt to try to get your attention, how to get your interest, how to get affection, humor, help, even like any way that they're trying to get emotional engagement from another person can be considered a bid. Someone could say, hey, let's watch this movie together. That could be a bid for connection. Oh, let's read the paper. Let's go out for coffee. Let me tell you a joke. All of those things could be a bid for connection. And so many relationship moments that they could seem insignificant on the surface could actually be a person's bid to try to connect with you. Another example, oh, look at the bird outside. On the surface, it's just about the bird, but underneath, it's really an invitation to just share the small moment. Another thing, it could be a spouse. They send a funny video to their partner during the workday. The video itself may be trivial, but the relational message is to let the person know, I thought of you. And so in healthy connections, they're oftentimes going to grow in those kind of small moments, not always in deep conversation, not always in the big romantic gestures. It can just be paying attention to each other's bids. And so missing bids occasionally is normal, but we do want to be careful about this chronic pattern of just turning away from a person's bid to connect with us. Again, we're talking about how to build secure relationships that last. Secure communication. It usually includes being direct, specific, respectful, flexible, responsible. An example of indirect communication, I guess I'll do everything myself like always. That's indirect communication. But the actual need may be, I'm overwhelmed and need help with dinner or with the kids or with homework or with whatever it is, just being more direct. So secure communication, it names the need rather than requiring the other person to have to decode our resentment or what we're looking for. Another example could be like over explaining. Someone says no to an invitation, and then they send a 3 paragraph explanation because they fear that the other person may think badly of them. But a more secure response could be something like, thank you for inviting me. I won't be able to come this time. I appreciate you for thinking of me. There is no courtroom defense required, just straight, direct, and to the point. And I want to make a clinical clarification. Direct communication is not permission to be harsh, right? I'm just being honest. People can sometimes use that as an excuse for poor emotional irregulation, or when they are communicating disrespect. So honesty and kindness, it can coexist. And I want to say something too. Compatibility is not the same as attachment. One of the biggest misconceptions in relationship conversation is consuming that every difficulty can be solved by attachment healing. Sometimes two people are just simply not compatible. Compatibility may involve like your core values, your lifestyle, your faith, your parenting expectations, sexual expectations, long term goals, cultural expectations. And so, two people can communicate respectfully and care deeply about us. One wants children, the other one doesn't. Neither person needs to be diagnosed. Neither person is necessarily avoidant in that situation. It just might be incompatible. They might be incompatible. I want to just take a few minutes, a couple of minutes actually, to talk about green flags that people oftentimes overlook because we talk often about red flags. Secure connections also means we have to recognize green flags. An example, I need time to think about that before I answer. This may be emotional regulation and not avoidance. We don't want to term it as avoidance just because we might be a person who wants an immediate response. A friend can tell someone, I care about you, but I can't help you out this week. That may be like them being able to recognize their capacity in a healthy way. It may not be rejection. A partner may say, I was wrong. This is accountability. If someone say, did I understand you correctly, that might be them trying to be curious about what's going on. If someone changes their behavior after an apology, that's a sign of repair. If someone celebrates your success without becoming competitive, that sounds like relational security. Someone can disagree with you without trying to shame you. That's emotional safety. So we want to be able to recognize those green flags just as much as sometimes we spend time recognizing red flags, right? So what secure love does not require, it does not require someone to have to mind read what you're thinking, proven loyalty through their suffering, agreeing about everything, hiding their success, staying in every relationship, never disappointing another person, giving up their convictions to keep the peace. And this is important, especially for my Christian viewers. I want to clarify forgiveness, reconciliation, and trust, they are related, but they're not identical. A person can forgive while still maintaining distance. Reconciliation requires participation from both ends. So trust is generally built through evidence. Faith does not require someone to remain available for ongoing mistreatment. And so that's something for the faith community to remember. Secure functioning matters because, and also matters in friendships. You can celebrate another person without competing with them. In families, you can love your relatives without giving them unlimited access. Your workplace, you can receive feedback without assuming that your entire professional identity is under attack. Parenting, you can apologize to your children without believing that your parental authority has been destroyed. And in the faith community, you can honor spiritual leadership without surrendering your discernment, your personal agency, or appropriate boundaries to them. And so the tool that I want to leave you with today is the secure tool. Let me get it on the screen for you. This is what I'm gonna leave you with today. So the secure check, SECURE. When you're evaluating a relationship or your own behavior within one, right? You want to ask S, is there safety? Can I express myself without expecting humiliation or intimidation or retaliation? The E is for emotional availability. Can emotions be acknowledged without everything being fixed or dismissed or weaponized? C is for consistency. Do words and behavior generally match across time? Do you see that consistency? U is for understanding. Can can we be curious about each other instead of assuming motives? That's how you gain understanding. R is for repair. When harm happens, can it be acknowledged and addressed? And then E, last but not least, is for equality. Do both people need do both people's need for dignity, boundaries, and their voice matters? A relationship does not need to perform perfectly in all of these 6 areas. The question is whether these qualities are present in that overall pattern. So you're going to look at the overall pattern again and see if it meets this secure check of safety, emotional availability, consistency, understanding, repair, and equality. And so I want to just leave you all with this. I want you to privately finish this statement. One secure relationship habit that I want to practice is consistent, that I want to, I'm sorry, one relationship habit I want to practice more consistently is what? Listening without fixing, saying no, receiving support, checking my assumptions, repairing after conflict, speaking up sooner. So just privately think about that. What do you want to practice more consistently? Asking directly, giving people space, trusting people gradually. What do you need to practice more consistently? Security is not just one decision. It's just going to be that pattern that's going to be built over those small decisions over time. And so I hope this information helped you all. I hope you enjoyed this 4-part series on attachment. We ended today with building secure relationships that last. And so the goal of this series was never to give you another label. It was just to help you understand yourself with greater accuracy and compassion. Your attachment history, it matters, but you don't have to let it write every chapter of your relationship. And the last thing I want to say is secure connection is built when we learn to be present. We got to be present without controlling, be honest without attacking, being connected without losing ourselves, and discerning without closing out our hearts. And to my faith community, for those who understand healing through that lens of faith, secure connections can also remind us that love and truth are not opposite. Grace doesn't eliminate boundaries, and compassion does not require us to abandon ourselves. Healthy love allows for truth, dignity, responsibility, and care. All of those things can coexist within the same space. And so I thank you all for being with me this morning. Again, you can go back and watch the entire series if you missed it. Again, part 1 was attached, understanding your relationship blueprint. Part 2 was triggered. Why do we act the way we do? Part 3, healing attachment wounds, moving towards secure attachment. And part 4, building secure relationships that last. And I want to end with this. Awareness gives us language. Healing gives us choices. Secure connection gives those choices somewhere we live, right? when we have that secure connection, it gives those choices where we live. And this, I hope this presentation was helpful. Again, it's educational and not meant to substitute for individualized mental health assessment, diagnoses, or treatment. And so I thank you all for being with me this morning, and I will see you for the next series. I'm developing one now as we speak, or as we've been speaking, and I'll definitely put that out when it's time for that presentation. Thank you all, and I look forward to going back and listening and looking at all of your comments. Thank you.